Dear viewers, namaste and a very warm welcome to this episode of NTV Chat, where we do hold in-depth conversation with global leaders, diplomats and influencers on issues that shape Nepal and the world. Today we are honored to have with us the Ambassador of the United States to Nepal, His Excellency Mr. Dean Thompson with us. And we are holding this conversation at a time when the world is so closely watching the shift in American leadership, with the Republican candidate, Mr. Donald Trump, holding a sweeping victory in the US elections 2024. There is much anticipation, perhaps apprehension on what lies ahead, not only in the US domestic scene, but also globally. And tonight we delve into this new chapter, regarding what this new chapter might mean to the world, the United States itself, and to countries like Nepal. Besides this, we certainly want to switch into and explore the prospects of growth or in cooperation and relationship between United States and Nepal. A very warm welcome, Ambassador Thompson, to our studios. What an opportune time for us to be holding this conversation.
Well, thanks, Shivani. It's great to be here. I always have a good time chatting with you and having a chance to, to talk to the people of Nepal through various mediums. So thanks for this opportunity.
Right. Thank you. Thank you indeed for joining us today. Let's begin with the big picture, Ambassador Thompson, the US elections and the worldwide implications of the elections, especially when the world is so abuzz about it. This election, undeniably, as you know, has stirred very strong responses. In fact, drawn the world's attention to the evolving landscape of the American society. That's how the world is perceiving it at the moment. How do you think the world should interpret this choice? Or to be more specific, what does this reveal about the current priorities, concerns, and the shifting sentiments of the American society?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we will see develop over the coming months lots of analysis and lots of ideas about why people voted the way they did. Ultimately, I think what's great about this is, that there was widespread interest across the United States. There was a very active campaign that dealt with the full range of issues that confront the United States today, both domestically and internationally. And at the end of the day, the American people sent a pretty clear signal. There have been elections in the past where things have dragged on a bit, but this time it was quite clear who the choice was. And so now we're in the very active process of transitioning from one administration to another. President Biden will, of course, remain in charge until January 20th, and on that day, President Trump will have the opportunity to take over. So. President Biden, our Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, have all made very clear that making as smooth and positive a transition as possible is a high priority for this administration. And so we look forward to helping make that happen as best we can.
How do you see the election outcomes influencing the political landscape within the United States, particularly regarding the bipartisan cooperation in the days ahead now?
Well, we'll have to see. Some of that is still being sorted out. The lower house of Congress was still unclear which party would have full control. But what is clear is that the White House and the Senate will be of the same party, and so there will be, a lot of interest in how that affects the early policy decisions that the new administration makes. But I think where we are right now, of course, is the new administration will have to determine who it wants in what positions, what priorities it will have in its first days, weeks, months going into office, and then what kind of outreach it does to try to build as broad a. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more about what's happening in America that unites us than divides us. And so I think now that the campaign is over, now that a decision has been made, hopefully we'll be able to see the country come together and start to, confront the issues that people are concerned about. And of course, the world remains a very active and dynamic place, and I think America wants to continue to make sure we play a positive role wherever we can.
Given the President-elect's America First policy, Ambassador Thompson, What changes should the allies and the trade partners expect in the U.S. foreign policy?
Well, I think we want to be careful to make too many predictions at this stage. The president-elect is still putting his team together, figuring out what will be their top priorities in the initial days. And I would be careful reading too much into past experiences and trying to predict the future. I think what you've seen over the course of American history is we've tried to establish, well, let's use Nepal as an example, right? Through both series of administrations, Republican or Democrat, the priorities have largely remained the same, and there has remained a really strong commitment to building a strong partnership, helping Nepal's path to development, creating a stronger economy, and making it a stronger contributor to the region and the world. I expect that will continue, wholeheartedly going into the new administration, and we're certainly committed to continuing that work here in the country.
How might we see U.S. engagement in international trade recalibrate under the new administration, especially in South Asia? Do you foresee any shifts?
What's said in a campaign may or may not be exactly what is said and done in the act of governing, and so we'll have to see where the new administration wants to go on that. For right now, of course, our policies remain as they've been, and we continue to pursue a very active engagement in building trade relationships and in trying to help build the economies of South Asia, which are increasingly important to the entire world.
One major issue of global concern is climate, right? Especially when this is such a very crucial issue, and when many look at U.S. leadership to taking things ahead. And especially for Nepal, I need not elaborate on how important this issue is to curb, and divert the adversities that it has to face. And with Mr. Trump back in power, what direction can we expect? Especially of fears of renewed isolation?
Right now, the Biden administration is completely committed to moving forward with their agenda on climate change and actively participating in COP29. I think when you look at what's happening in the U.S. writ large, so many states and local governments are committed to making headway and to finding ways to mitigate the effects of climate change, and that's a strong direction that we've gone with our foreign policy across the board. As to what priorities the new administration will take on, again, we'll have to wait for them to come in and to make their desires clear. But it is clear that Nepal continues to be very affected and have great concerns about what's going on, and plays a really important regional role, especially through organizations such as ICIMAD, the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, and its partnerships around the region. So we look forward to continuing to assisting those as we go forward.
Let's switch to the uncertainty around the immigration laws, which I think is of primary concern again to the large Nepali diaspora and the Nepali aspirants here in Nepal. How can the U.S. government ensure the safety and rights of the Nepali immigrants, especially those on temporary visas or with pending applications?
It's too early to speculate about particular actions. What I think is anybody who is in the United States on a legal visa for legal purposes, for productive purposes, will go ahead and carry out their business without any issue whatsoever. And we continue to look for ways to make the process of getting a visa and traveling to the U.S. for business, school, whatever it might be, as easy as possible. I think you're probably aware, and many of your viewers are probably aware, Nepal has the 14th largest, I believe, population of foreign students in the United States. Increasing numbers of Nepalis are doing business with U.S. entities. We're always going to look for ways to try to maintain those opportunities and those relationships.
Especially on the ongoing conflicts in regions like Ukraine and the Middle East, do you anticipate shifts in the U.S.'s approach in its role in these situations?
The U.S. has remained committed to, trying to find productive and peaceful solutions to a lot of these problems. And I know that this administration is committed to working hard through to its very last day to try to find resolutions wherever it can.
How does the U.S. Embassy ensure continuity in its foreign policy, Ambassador Thompson, especially in the election years?
Well, it's a great question, and I guess I would go back first and foremost to saying, embassies don't have individual foreign policies, right? We conduct the foreign policy of the United States, and so what we do is we work very hard to ensure that that policy is explained clearly to our partner governments and to the people of those countries, that we align our resources with those priorities. And I think what you've seen over the last 77 years is a great deal of continuity in terms of the bilateral relationship, using Nepal specifically as an example. And I fully expect that much of that will continue as we go forward. There may be tweaks, there may be little differences in various aspects of an administration's priorities or in terms of what resources are available. But by and large, we've seen bipartisan support for the kind of development work and economic growth work that we've been doing with Nepal, and I expect that to continue.
So what are the priority areas that the United States is currently focusing on in Nepal, and how do you align these with Nepal's development goals?
Our priorities are fairly straightforward, right? Trying to help Nepal continue on its path to democracy and building the democratic institutions of the country, helping to ensure that its economic growth is robust, remains robust, and can meet the growing needs and interests of the Nepali people. One of the things I've talked a lot about is we would love to be part of creating an economic boom in Nepal that would attract more and more young people to stay home and build Nepal's economy, because so many of them are doing brilliant work around the world, growing other people's economies. I'd love to see more of that talent come home or stay home and be part of what's happening on the ground here, because we think the potential is very large. We're working in any number of areas with Nepal, including building its clean energy possibilities, and our MCC project is looking at how do we expand the opportunities for Nepalis to use more of the energy available in the country to build their businesses, to ensure their households have everything they need. And then even on top of that, we believe there will be some export potential. And so how can Nepal play a role in greening the energy of the region through exports perhaps to India, Bangladesh, going forward, which will also add to national income. So I think there's a number of areas where that's going to continue to be a very high priority for us. We think the tourism sector has tremendous potential, and I mentioned as we were talking before the show started, we saw 100,000 Americans visit Nepal this last year. Just a wonderful testament, I think, to the kind of outreach that has been done to make people aware of all the incredible things that are available here in the shadow of the Himalayas, and in a country that's so steeped in culture and history, and such a wonderful and beautiful place to visit. You have an amazing IT sector that's doing some incredible cutting-edge work on many, many fronts, and also I think taking advantage of some of the opportunities that have built up in the region thanks to India's IT development over time. Healthcare remains an area where I think growth is quite large, and you're even starting to see more and more people come to Nepal for specific aspects of healthcare because it can be done effectively and cheaply and with great care. So we're excited about all these prospects. At the same time, we recognize there's still a huge agricultural sector that could develop even further and be more of a breadbasket for the country and maybe even for the region. We want to be part of helping on that front. And all of these are areas where our various development agencies like USAID, Development Finance Corporation, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and even organizations like the Peace Corps continue to work and look for ways to carry the relationship with the Nepali people as far as we can possibly take it.
You've been here for quite a bit to know and understand the nitty-gritties. There are the rosy side, and then there are the adversities. And Nepal has its own internal issues, own internal hurdles, and then there is this rapidly changing, geopolitical dynamics, right, the regional dynamics globally as well. So could you share some of the specific ways the United States is supporting Nepal's development and resilience efforts in this very background or backdrop?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think Nepal continues to play such a vital role in the region and globally. I mean, first and foremost, Nepal has become the world's largest contributor of UN peacekeepers to very difficult spots around the world, and plays a strong role in bringing peace to those areas, or ensuring the peace in those areas. It's also the largest contributor of women peacekeepers, which of course makes those units all that much more effective in their outreach with local communities and their ability to play a positive role in these UN initiatives. So we continue to look for ways to help train and provide supplies and things like that these units will need. Nepal, as I mentioned earlier, also continues to play a really strong role in climate change mitigation for the region and the world. Of course, President Padyal and the delegation are in Baku right now for COP. And I know that they have a very specific focus on the effects of climate change on mountain areas, and looking to how to mitigate and play a key role in helping the people of these mountainous regions around the world to adapt and find ways forward through all the changes they face in weather patterns or whatever other effects come to be. So, you know, I think that Nepal is not just navigating the regional dynamics, but looking to lead and looking to play a positive role. And I think that's really inspiring, and I hope we can continue to help, you know, provide resources and, you know, provide support for where it can do that.
Could you provide the updates on the current state of projects under the much-hyped Millennium Challenge Corporation, the MCC in Nepal? Yeah,
absolutely. So Millennium Challenge Corporation has, you know, entered into force just about 1 year ago. We've had a very busy year. We've issued a number of contracts related to building the substations and the underlying infrastructure of the project. The transportation portion of the project, that tender is out for bid right now, and we hope to have that come back very soon. That's going to introduce a very exciting new technology that we think will help Nepal for decades going forward in terms of building better roads that are stronger and more adaptable to the conditions on the ground here in the country. And then very soon we hope to have the 297-kilometer transmission line project out for bid. And that will then sort of wrap up all of the big pieces of the project so that the works can get underway. And once those get underway, I think it's going to be very exciting to see the economic growth opportunities that MCC can bring, because we expect to employ, you know, close to 10,000 people when it comes to putting this project into place. We have a very ambitious, very challenging 5-year timeline, but right now we're moving very smartly in that direction and are quite confident in our ability to carry it out in that time. And then, of course, Nepal is one of the largest contributing countries to the MCC program. So for the $500 million that we are putting in, Nepal is matching it with almost $200 million US in equivalent contributions. And so this really makes the project that much stronger and that much more vibrant in terms of what it can do and the impact it can have on Nepal's economy.
Mm-hmm. Reaping from what we have come through before we realized MCC here in Nepal, and from the progresses that we have achieved thus far, what are your observations in any sort of challenges or opportunities relating to MCC?
Well, the opportunities, I think, are almost endless. Again, you know, this is a chance to build out the electrical grid throughout the country so that Nepalese can take full advantage of the hydropower resources that the country has. And so we believe this will be able to provide all the power the country needs to build its economy for people that run businesses. And then beyond that, we think the opportunity is going to be there to export excess energy, which could, you know, be a significant income earner for the country. You know, From a challenges perspective, it's in the name of the organization. It's meant to be something that is big and hard to do, and a game changer. It sets the highest environmental standards. It sets the highest labor standards. It sets out an ambitious timeline and agenda. And so it requires us as a partner and the government as an implementer to make sure that they are staying on top of all the aspects of it, that decisions are made quickly, that no resources left on the table when it can be employed usefully. And I think it's important to remind people, the Millennium Challenge Corporation and the Millennium Challenge Account Program is something the U.S. offers, right, to countries that have met very high standards in terms of their democratization, their economic growth, their social ability to provide for their citizens. But they are ultimately owned and designed by the country themselves. And so this is a project that Nepal decided to do through a consultative mechanism with all aspects of Nepali society. And so I think that's one of the reasons that once we've gotten out of the box, we've been able to move forward very, very quickly on it.
Mm-hmm. And besides or beyond MCC, Ambassador Thompson, are there other areas where the US sees Nepal as a key partner in the region?
Well, absolutely. I mean, first off, our USAID initiatives here, the current 5-year package has a value of about $650 million that are being put into areas such as agricultural development, education development, building the tourism sector and looking at other business angles to build the economic growth capacity, to mitigate for climate change effects that are out there, and to build stronger environmental programs and initiatives throughout the country. So I think we're going to continue to be a very strong partner on those fronts. We also look a lot at the social development framework, right? And through USAID and initiatives like our Development Finance Corporation, we do a lot to try to uplift women, marginalized communities. We've seen DFC have a program to provide financing for women-run small and medium-sized enterprises, which we think provides a great chance to build the kinds of enterprises that are the backbone of employment in any country in the world. USAID, I just continue to be amazed as I travel around the country and I see the life-changing nature of the work that goes on. I visited not long ago down in Modeste region, I believe it was, some irrigation projects that had just completely transformed the agricultural output of these areas, largely for women farmers. And what that meant for their lifestyle and their livelihood was just tremendous. So we're going to continue to work and focus on all those areas in close concert and in close partnership with Nepal's government and with the people of the country, because we really want to be part of the exciting growth potential we see in the country.
As the United States focuses on Indo-Pacific security, Ambassador Thompson, how do you see Nepal's role in regional security and stability, particularly with the ongoing border issues between our two neighbors and the growing interest in the Himalayas?
Well, again, I really think Nepal is going to continue to play a strong and positive role on that front. Nepal, has always maintained that it's looking to have good relationships across the board, both internationally and regionally. It's the host to SAARC, it's the host to ISIMOD. It clearly wants to be a force for good in the region, and so we would like to find ways to support them on that front. We have always said, and I certainly have reiterated since I've been here, we fully expect Nepal is going to have good relations with its neighbors and should be looking for ways to enhance its relationships and enhance the ties that exist there. At the same time, we want to make sure that Nepal has all the sovereignty that it needs and deserves to make its own decisions, to ensure that the pathways to prosperity and the pathways to democracy that it's pursuing, it can pursue based on its own interests and the interests of its people.
we can clearly see that it's not a very favorable time for Nepal regarding its foreign policy, as it's having to deal with so much, because so much is changing globally and regionally. However, with Nepal struggling, or in fact working a lot in navigating, the relationship with its very important neighbors, China and India, and amid all these political shifts that are, impacting the region and the globe, as I said, how does the US manage its relationship, especially with the government of Nepal here?
Well, I think we try to manage it through a very close and very vibrant dialogue to understand what are the challenges Nepal sees that it faces, what are the resources it needs to manage those challenges, and to create as much space as it needs to exercise its sovereignty and to play a positive role. We see Nepal play a very positive role in the UN. I mentioned the peacekeeping operations, but even beyond that, in terms of other UN operations, there's a retired UN officials group here in Nepal, right? That the people have gone around and served UN interests around the world, and so we want to make sure Nepal continues to play a positive role and continues to have the resources and the personnel it needs to do those things. The challenges are always going to be there internationally. In my entire career, I've never experienced a, calm and easy time where everything was just perfect. It's the nature of the relationships and the histories and everything else that are out there for things to be challenging. What we want to do is be part of a positive effort to manage those challenges and to ensure that people can exercise their interests and recognize their aspirations.
We still believe these are really unique times, and I think the role of envoys, especially ambassadors and diplomats, have never been so important, I think, in every country, and especially at places which are of geostrategic importance. And especially when we talk of Nepal, you've been here for quite a significant time period to see things up close, and with coalition shifting every few months, rampant corruption allegations making news headlines, and then there are constant protests ongoing for one issue or the other. We can see the situation is not as stable or favorable as we've wanted it to be, and I think you also have your share of challenges that comes your way owing to all these issues. In light of all this, how does the United States manage its relationship with the government officials as you take on the day-to-day procedures?
Well, I think what we really try to do is we try to be as open as we can be to meeting as many people as we can, both in and out of government, because as we've seen, and you mentioned my time here, I've been here 2 years. I've seen about 5 governments come and go in that time frame, but people are in and out of government, right? And so it's good to maintain those relationships and help them know, even if they're not in power, what it is we're doing. It's why we try to be so transparent about everything that we do from a policy perspective, from a partnership perspective, from a assistance and development perspective. We want all Nepalis to be aware and recognize the value that's there and to have a say in how that goes. That way, when new governments come in, there's already some familiarity, there are already some relationships, and we can keep things moving on a positive direction. Listen, the makeup of governments, the democratic process, those are all things for the people of Nepal to determine for themselves. I would never deign to, get involved in that aspect of it. But as far as maintaining the partnership and making it as positive as it can possibly be, we're ready to work with whoever the people of Nepal put into power.
Just out of curiosity, what's that one aspect of diplomacy in Nepal that feels particularly unique and promising to you?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, it's absolutely the cultural diplomacy that we get to have here. I think we can go much deeper in a country like Nepal than maybe some other countries around the world. Nepal is the largest recipient of funding from what the State Department terms its Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation. We've put almost $4.5 million US into the country, all over the country, from Upper Mustang to areas in Kathmandu, helping to build and restore cultural heritage sites. We've got a new project that's going to start here in Kathmandu to restore some of the Hittis in the district. You know, these are all things that play significant roles in people's lives, their spiritual lives, their day-to-day lives. And we just love being able to have a role in enabling people to enjoy that aspect of their lives to the fullest. We've also been very involved in restoring lost and stolen artifacts to the country. What a wonderful opportunity to help put those back into the temples and into the neighborhoods where they originated, so that people can enjoy them, whether it's through their worship lives or through their, teaching kids about the history of the country. Whatever it is, it adds back to the community, and we want to continue to do that. And so Nepalis are so generous, so incredibly generous in sharing their culture, that I think that's a wonderful thing for us to take advantage of in terms of building the partnership even further. And then I would say, related to that, is just the people-to-people relationships that we get to build and have here on so many fronts. The education pieces, the youth council pieces, as I mentioned, the American spaces around the country where people can go and borrow books at the library or do education counseling, or have local civic type meetings. These are all ways that we can connect with the people of Nepal, not just here in Kathmandu, but across the whole country. We love doing it, and I think it's a really unique part of being a diplomat here in this country.
And how about the difficult or the most challenging thing about working and living in Nepal?
Trying to keep my weight off. We are fed at every possible moment the best food in the world, and so that is a constant challenge. No, I mean, we just look. Obviously, we would love to travel more, but you have to travel during certain times of the year because of weather and other challenges that are out there with infrastructure, things of that nature. That's just a reality, right? But we want to be a part of helping the country to mitigate and take full advantage of what resources it can in order to make it possible for people to enjoy their lives to the fullest here and to continue sharing it with the rest of the world. When I travel, I see that there's a saying, something akin to visitors are like gods, and Nepalis fully live up to that sort of reputation and that ideal, I would say, in treating people with such love and kindness and care that it's incredible to me the number of people that come here just to trek or just to see the country once and then forge a 40 or 50 year relationship with it and with neighborhoods and communities. That's phenomenal, and we want to continue to see that thrive and build on that even further.
I'm sure we couldn't have ended this any better, Ambassador Thompson, and thank you for coming over and for this very insightful conversation.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Thank you, dear viewers. That's it from this special edition of NTV Chat. We will be back with a new episode very soon. Until then, goodbye and namaste.